Alright, so let's have a look at this slide, which asks a question here. Does it matter whether the tax is collected from producers or consumers? So if you collect the tax from the producer, we just talked about it. Demand, supply, and there is a new supply, S prime, which is supply plus tau. If you collected the tax from the consumer, we will have a new demand, D prime, which is D minus tau. We have two approaches to analyze this. So think about, if you are a producer, you are willing to sell at this level, and now you know the government is going to collect the tax from you. So you will raise your willingness to sell in advance, right? So that after the deduction of tau, you may receive what you initially want to have. Okay? But now, if you are a consumer, you know after you buy something, the government is collect the tax from you. Then what would you do? This is the willingness you want to pay to the producer. Now you know you have to pay an extra tau. So the level you are willing to pay to the producer would be less by tau. Okay? So in sum, totally, you are willing to pay, say, $100, but you know the government is going to collect $20 from you. So now you are willing to pay only $80. Is that clear? So everyone okay with this? And you will see the new equilibrium, and if this is Q1, then this will be Q1. And P1 is what the consumer pays. And this would be P1, the consumer pays. But this would be P2, the producers receive. This is P2, the producer receive. So P1 would be the same, P2 would be the same, and the reason why they are the same, because the size here, the tax size, is tau, either in the first case or in the second case. In the first approach, charging the tax from the producer or collecting the tax from the consumer. In either scenario or in either case, in either approach, we have the same tax-sized wedge. So the tax size is tau. The tax size is tau. Tau and tau. So if demand, we have same demand curves in both diagrams and same supply curves in both diagrams. And we have the same P0 here. So everything is the same. Everything is the same. The price the consumer has to pay, the price the producer can receive, the initial price, and the tax incidence on consumer and the tax incidence on producers. Okay? Everything is the same, except for one thing, the market price. In this case, you see the price transacted in the market would be P1. And in this case, the market price transacted in the market would be P2. So the price label on the good in the first case would be P1. So I pay P1 if I'm the buyer. I pay P1. And if you are the seller, you got P1, but you have to take out tau, giving it to the government, right? In the second case, the price label would be P2. And I'm the consumer, and I'm the buyer. I pay P2 to you. You are the seller. So you receive P2. But after paying P2 to the producer, to the seller, I'm the consumer, right? I got to pay an extra tau to the government. Is that clear? So the price label on the product in the first scenario would be P1 and P2 in the second. Is that okay? This is the only exception for the two approaches, the market price. Okay, 1 minute. You may digest for a while, discuss with your classmates. Okay, once again, what is P1? The price the buyer has to pay, right? P1. What is P2? The price the seller, the producer can receive. What is P1 minus P0? The tax incidence on consumer, right? What is P0 minus P2? The tax incidence on producers. And what about Q1? Is the same. So all of them are the same. But since Q1 is actually something dropped from Q0. Something dropped from Q0. So the size of the drop would be the same. And since the tax size is the same by tau, then the area of the triangle be the same. So that the deadweight loss is the same. Okay? So under either scenario, a tax size wedge opens up between demand and supply, and the instance analysis is identical. all consequences are identical except for the market price. The market price means the price transacted or the price label on the product. Is it good for you? So, everyone happy with this result? Okay, on this slide, there is a question about, so the question is, does it matter whether the tax is a unit tax, specific tax, or an ad valorem tax? So does it matter whether it's in 从量 or in 从价, right? Unit tax, ad valorem tax. So if the ad valorem tax rate is chosen to match the per unit tax divided by equilibrium price, what does it mean? The effects are the same. What does it mean? Okay? So let's have a look at the diagram here. Now, who is the object to collect taxes by the government? So from whom? The government collect tax from the consumer, right? The demand. So we make the supply unchanged, and the demand will shift downward by tau. Is that right? So this is a unit tax or specific tax. This is how we analyze the unit or specific tax. And 3.3 here is the original what? Price. And it is not clear here. Let me draw it. Okay. This is P0 and this would be P2. D prime equals D minus tau supply. Okay? So now, the new quantity would be Q0, Q1. This is Q0. Without tax, with tax tau. Okay? And what if we want to know how can we make the effects the same? Under what kind of circumstances, under what kind of conditions can we make the effects the same? Which means which tax rates, ad valorem tax rate, can be chosen to match it. So I just introduced the way to analyze ad valorem. We may do something like this: supply, demand, and we rotate supply counterclockwise. Something like this, right? We have another way to do this. Supply, demand. We may rotate demand in this case. So this is the initial demand, and this D prime would be 1 minus T D. Okay? So think about if the initial price is, say, $100, is $100. Now you are the producer. You have to pay extra 20% rate of tax. Then you would pay 120, right? Okay? But if you are a consumer, it is $100. You have to pay 20% tax rate. Then this one would be is 1D, and this would be 0.8D. Okay? A reduction by 20%. So this is another way to analyze if the ad valorem tax is collected from the consumer. Now, since the new intercept, the cutting point is here, we may choose a straight line, rotate by this pivot counterclockwise, right? Okay? So this straight line may go through the same points corresponding Q1. So the new demand curve, the D prime, the new demand curve may cut S at the quantity of Q1, which means the same effect, right? And the tax size would be the same. But what kind of tax rate may we choose to make it the same? You just have a new demand curve going through these points and proportional downward, right? It's a rotation, just like what I'm drawing on the blackboard. So if you want to know the effect caused by either unit tax or ad valorem tax, if you want the effect the same, then you have to, the way we may match the tax rates would be using this kind of approach. We just make a straight line from the pivot or from the vertical intercept here, because it is 0, the price is 0, so proportionally downward. Okay? This is the way we may choose the tax rate. Any question here? Okay. Because this is the target, what we want to do. The target is we want to make the effect the same. We want to obtain the same effect. Okay? So we need to have the same equilibrium point here. So do you get the answer? And what would be the tax rate? If this size here, if the size here is tau, and if this is P1, what would be the proportion? It would be, this would be P1 minus tau, right? P2 equals P1 minus tau. So P2 over P1 would be 1 minus T. Is that clear? This is 1D, and this is 1 minus TD. Okay? So P2, the height here, divided by P1 would be 1 minus T. Get it? This is D, and 1 minus TD. So, then what is T? T would equal P1 minus P2, which is tau over P1. Is that right? So, per unit tax, which is tau, divided by equilibrium price. This is equilibrium price. Tau by price. Okay? Yes.
所以 T 在哪里啊？就是所以他在这个图上找不到一个 T 的。
T is a tax rate, and T is here. So if you have a 1D and you say it is a 0.8D, which means T equals 20%. If it is 0.9D, then the tax rate would be 10%. Okay, if the tax rate goes up to 25%, then this would be 0.75D. Is that clear? Okay? So it's 100% of demand, and this is the proportion after tax of demand. So the tax revenue would be the same by either specific or ad valorem tax.
Why P2 divided by P1 will equal to 1 minus T? Why?
Because because this is 1D and 1 minus D, right? So for everywhere on the point here would be a proportion of this, right?
Oh.
So it's something like 20% off. So 80% of 100%.
Okay.
Okay? So everywhere the proportion of would be the same. Any further questions? Okay, quantity supply need not equal quantity demand. Price ceiling. Okay, now let's talk about price ceiling. So, when you see the term price ceiling, what is ceiling? Ceiling is something up or down. Up, right? 天花板, price ceiling is a upper limit. So you cannot go beyond the price. You cannot have a price above the limit, which we call it a price ceiling. And effective ceiling Alright, maybe I may give you something. Let me check. Okay. Now, let me give you a story talking about this. Think about the demand and the supply. Now, there's a shock, an external shock, like a typhoon or like something bad, and hurting the supply. So the supply shifts to the left, which means it's a negative shock on the supply, right? And this is the initial equilibrium E1 and the new equilibrium E2. Without any intervention by the government, the price, of course, would go up or down. The price would go up or down. Up, right? So you see something very common during the typhoon season or during the typhoon duration. Something gets more expensive, like vegetable, like food, something. And what about the government if they are very kind, say, oh, we don't want the consumer pays more than before, so they set a price limit here. And we call it a price ceiling, which means prices above this limit is prohibited. It's not allowed, okay? So the new equilibrium falls in the prohibition region. It cannot be allowed. The price got to be here. Given this price floor, given this price ceiling, how many consumers want to buy the good? Would be this many, is right? Because the price is here, so according to the demand curve, this many consumers want to buy the product. What about how many buyers, how many sellers, how many producers are willing to sell their product? Now, since the supply curve shifts to here, right? And given this price, only this quantity of good would be supplied to the market. And quantity demand that exceeds quantity supply, we call it a shortage or a surplus. It's a shortage or a surplus. It's a shortage. In Chinese would be 供不应求, right? It's a shortage, excess demand. So we have a shortage here. Given a shortage and without any government intervention, the price, there will be a pressure to make the